All right, we're back. It is COMP305 in the fall 2016 semester, and we are week 11, part 3 of our broadcast. We just finished talking about how to create a coin in Blender, and now we've got to incorporate it into our Unity game, right? So I'm going to bring up Unity here, and I'm basing it off of lesson 11B, which I put up on GitHub for those people who are watching remotely. All right, so here it is, F2016, lesson 11B. And what I want to do here is start animation, right? Now, this is an interesting part. Here, when I've got a coin, it's not a prefab yet, okay? But one thing to note is I have a component called the animator. And yet, there isn't an animation controller that's built in. We have to create this, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to right-click on, or go to Assets, right-click and create a new folder called Animation. Here's our animation folder. And inside of our animation folder, we want to create a new controller, right? So a new animator controller that we're going to call coin controller. Just an animator controller, right? And if I look at the coin now, I want to drag my new coin controller onto that, like this. Okay. Here's something else. In my models, notice that in my coin, I have this default take. This default take is the clip. If I look at it and I play it, it's right here. That's where the clip is for my animation. Okay? That's what it is, right here, default take. However, I don't want to use this one because it is read only. I want to right click on it and I want to duplicate this. So I can go to edit or copy paste is probably the right thing to do. So I want to kind of go here, copy, right? So this is the one I want to use. And I want to copy it or move it somewhere else, like down here, right? And the reason why is because I can't modify this clip. This is the clip that I need to use, is this default take, right? And I want to use this clip, right? So how do I do that? If I go here and move it, right? If I go to my animation, not only does it move my animation, but it also moves my whole thing here, right? So that's what I want to do. I want to kind of, use this whole thing, this default take, in order for me to do that. The way to do that is I'm going to undo that change. Hold on a second. So I'm going to go back to my coin. I got my animator. Put this back on there. Hold on a second. And what I want to do is in my models, I want to probably drag and drop that thing back in there for a second. Just a moment. Coin model. But in my models, I can also, on my default take, edit my default take. And notice that in animations, right, if I scroll down, it says default take. I don't want that. I want my default take to be changed to something like coin clip. That's what I want it to be called. And down here, I want loop time to be checked. Because if I don't check loop time, it won't ever loop. It'll do it one time and it'll never do it again, right? So that's the one thing I want in there. Okay, apply. Once I've got that and I've changed it to coin clip, right? I want to be able to have a little bit more control over it. Now you can see once I've edited it one time, the duplicate button exists. I want to duplicate it. Now I only did that because I edited it. If I didn't edit the clip, I wouldn't be able to duplicate it. Okay, so I want to duplicate the clip. Here's my coin clip, and I want to drag and drop this coin clip into my animation folder. There it is. So again, the way I did that, just for people who didn't catch it, under Models, when I click on this default take, I clicked Edit, this Edit button, and that allowed me, once I edited it the first time, it allowed me to also duplicate it. Otherwise, you couldn't modify it at all. Why did I do that? Because in my animations, in my coin controller, if I click on the coin controller and go to the animation tab, which I have here. By the way, you can get the animation tab by going Window, Animation, right? Sorry, the animator is what I want to look at. That's what I want to really look at. Notice that there isn't any clip inside the animator. And I'm going to pull in my coin clip into the animator like this. So what this is doing is saying the following. It says, hey, when I start my animator controller, it's going to play my coin clip right away. That's what this is going to do. So that's the default state of my coin, to play the coin clip. Okay? Cool. And that's it. Save. Go back to my coin. Make sure that the animator controller is on there. And now when I play, everything's going to be perfect, right? No. Wrong. I'll show you what it does. It does this. Huh? How come it's there? I know why it's there, but why do you think it's there? Why do you think it's causing that? Sorry, I gotta move my mouse into here. Why do you think it's there? How come? Well, there's another one. Oh, very nice. It's on 0, 0. So why is it on 0, 0? Because in Blender, I checked location, rotation, and scale, and 0, 0 is that point. That's why I checked it. So, man, how do I correct that now in Unity? Or do I have to go back in Blender? You can correct it in Unity, and I'll show you where to do it. That's why you have to create a separate clip, right? If you don't create a separate clip, it becomes read-only. So if I click on coin clip, this one, and if I click on animation, you can see that I've got rotation, position, position, rotation, and scale. I don't care about position, so I'm going to click on position, right-click, and I want to delete it, right? I want to delete that one. Delete. I want to do the same thing for scale. I'm not scaling anything, so I'm going to delete that one too. Right? And now all I care about is rotation. So that's the only thing that I'm locking down, just rotation on the X, Y, and Z coordinates. Now if I press this, I'm going to see that I get my coin and hovering where it's supposed to go. Okay? Nice and easy. Where's the other one? It's coming. It's coming. It's going to chase me. Well, I missed it. All right. So my animation's pretty much done, right? Let's recap what we did, right? When we did the animations. 1, I created a animator controller. You can't do anything with one of these. And I did that by right-clicking and going Create Animator Controller. That's just a container for the clips, right? Then I had to go to my model. And the only way I could create my clip and modify my clip was to click onto it and click Edit. Once I've done that, I released the read-only axis on it, and it allowed me to duplicate my model by going to here and click Duplicate, or Control-D or Command-D. Once I duplicated my coin clip, I pulled it across into the animation folder, and then I opened up my coin controller in my animator window and pulled my coin clip in here to make it the default animation, right? One other thing I also did was I made my coin clip inside the clip itself in the inspector. It has to, the loop time has to be on. If the loop time's not on, it'll only do it once. Okay? Animation 101. Now the great thing is we did everything in Blender, right? But we still have control in Unity, which is really cool, right? And that's the way we would do an arm. If I was animating an arm to come up to shoot a gun, right? I would do that whole arm animation in Blender, right? Because it's far easier for me to put bones in Blender and do everything and put it inside and do the animation than to do it all in Unity. Unity is insane to do it. It's way too difficult, right? And it's not meant for that, right? You want to use something like Blender or Maya or 3D Studio Max. Those are the ways to do it. Okay, now that I got the coin, I got a problem. I always have problems, it seems, right? But here's my problem. My problem is that I want to, when the player touches the coin, right? When the player touches the coin should make a sound, boop, or something like that, and then disappear, okay? Because I'm collecting the coin. I'm gonna do all that coin collection stuff and scoring and everything next week, but this week, I wanna talk about how to do that. How do I hit the coin, make it make a sound, and then disappear, right? And we're gonna use something called a coroutine in order for us to do that. A little bit more challenging to do. Okay, how do we do that? So let's take a look at the coin. Here's my scene. There's the coin. And first of all, I need some kind of collider, right? And the way to do that, of course, is to go Add Component, Physics, and I want to add in a collider. What collider should I use? A box collider, a sphere collider, a capsule collider, a mesh collider, a wheel collider? What do you think? Box collider, right? Because it's just a damn coin, right? It's not going to matter, right? And any more complicated than this, if I have lots of coins, it's really going to be computationally expensive. Because if I use a mesh collider or something like that, that's like really crazy. You don't need to, unless you're doing something like rigid body physics, or you're worried about perfect collisions with the coin, which you probably won't be because you've got a first-person controller. It doesn't matter. Use a box collider. It's the easiest one, and it's going to be right around it. Let me show you the difference. So here's the box collider. Watch. It's like right here. It's hard for you to see this, but you can see that it's just right around this thing. The only thing is this edge, but who cares? It's going to spin anyway. You probably won't notice because it's spinning like this. So it's going to hit you no matter what happens, right? So don't worry about it is the answer, okay? Yes, you could use more complex colliders, but why? You don't need it. Okay, so that's the one. So I need a collider. I need it to be a trigger collider. I don't want it to move around, or I don't want it to push the coin anywhere. I want to be able to pass through the coin, and as soon as I pass through it, when the trigger happens, it's going to go boop boop, maybe add a score later on, and then disappear, okay? Now there's a problem. Here's the problem that I have. In my scripts that I currently have, under my player shooting script, I also included an area on the bottom that has on trigger enter. And this is for my player. So yeah, I could add a script to my coin to say when the coin hits the player, then it's destroyed. The problem is that any time that I collide with my exit, right, or any other collider, it's going to go away. So we have to change this little script here in player shooting. Okay? Why? Because I've set it up so if my player hits any trigger collider, it goes to the next scene. So that's not good. That's not what I want anymore. All right, let's go back to the to Unity, and let's go to where it says I have an exit on the map, right? So I have a bunch of enemies here, but in the maze, right, I have an exit, and I want to go to that exit, right? So if you notice, it's got a capsule collider on the exit, right? That's good. It's untagged also, so that I want to create a tag for the exit. I want to call it exit. So I want to go to tag, go to add tag. I want to create a new tag for the exit called exit. You know what? While we're here, we might as well add a new coin tag as well, because we want to tag the coin, right? So I've got those two tags. Yay. Go back to the exit, and I want to choose this exit is an exit, right? So I can say, well, if I'm colliding with the exit, then I go to the next level. Otherwise, I don't do anything like that. Coin, I'm going to click the coin and select it as a coin, just so that we have control. Again, it's just another control point for the coin. I'm building up my prefab, if you notice, right? I've added an animator, I've added a clip, I've added a collider, I'm adding a tag. That's how we build up our prefab, right? And now what I'm going to do is, now that we have all that, right, we want to change our scripts. So inside of our script, we're going to say something. This is in the player shooting script, right? Under the underscore scripts folder, we're going to say if, right, other dot game object dot compare tag is exit. So if I hit the exit, then I want to go to the next scene. That's what this is. That's what I'm changing. I'm changing lines 48 to 51 in my player shooting script, which, by the way, we probably should have called player controller script. That's all I'm doing. I'm not really changing much in here. Just so that when I hit the coin, I don't go to the next level. I hit one coin, boom, I'm in the next level, right? Doesn't make any sense. So now let's try it again. Let's make another script for the coin only. All right, so let's try this out. So I'm going to go into my scripts folder. I'm going to make a new script. So right-click, create C# script, and we're going to call it coin controller. Right? And in my coin controller script, double-click. I need a couple of things here. One, I need a on trigger enter, right? I need that. So I'm going to say void on trigger enter with a collider and other. But we're going to say something like this. If other.gameObject.compare tag is the player, then we want to do something. Right? That's what's going to happen here. But if I want to play a sound, so the chances are I need a sound to play for the coin, and I'm going to define a sound as another audio source. I'm going to say something like this. I'm going to say public audio source, right? And we're going to call it coin sound, right? And what I want to do here down here is say something like audio source dot play, right? Oh, sorry, audio source. The coin sound dot play. There we go. Right? I want to do that. Cool. And then afterwards, I want to destroy. Right? I want to destroy the coin. So I want to say this dot game object dot. Well, actually, this dot game object. I want to destroy the coin. So after I play the sound, I destroy the coin. It destroys itself. It destroys itself, right? But I got a problem, right? This, line 20 and line 21 are going to happen so quick, I'm not going to hear the sound. So let's try it out. So first of all, I'll make it like this, and then I'll take this destroy off and see that it works. And we need an audio source too. And we need a coin sound too. Might as well make a coin sound. Let's do it. So I'm going to go back into design, and I'm going to choose CFXR. You can also choose bfxr.net. There's my coin sound. I'm going to unplug my headphones so you can hear it. Okay, so again, you'd want to go into, if you don't have that CFXR, you can go to bfxr.net. If you go to bfxr.net, you'll see an online version of the same program, right? Where you can choose a pickup coin like this, right? Or if you want to do the local version, here's the CFXR. I like using the local version as well, where I can choose some kind of power up or coin pickup. Let's increase the playback volume a little bit. So, okay, that's pretty good. I like that one. That's probably right, right? You can make your own. And I'm going to export this one. And I'm going to put this inside. This is going to be called coin sound, the coin. I'm going to put this inside my desktop, and it's going to go into Unity projects and COMP305 lesson 11B under assets, under sounds, coin sound, export. Excellent. Okay, let's go back into, and I don't need this anymore. Don't save. And I don't need this one because I'm not using that one. But if I go back into Unity, I can see that it's imported the sound object, right? Here's the sound, and I can test it like this. That's what the sound of the coin is going to be, right? Nice and easy. All right. Well, to add a coin sound to the coin that it doesn't play on awake, I can just drag and drop for now. There's the coin sound. Yay! But I don't want it to play on awake, so I want to click this off. Okay, so I'm not playing it on awake, because otherwise it'll just play it every time the coins come into the game. It'll go doo-doo. Doesn't make sense. Yeah, so that's not good. So I did that. The next piece is I want to add my script to the coin. So I'm going to take my coin controller and drag and drop it onto the coin. And now you can see that I have a coin sound, which I'm going to drag the audio source down from the audio source into the coin sound. Okay, so the coin sound is working. I know it is. It's connected to the audio source, but when I collide with it with my player, I'll play the game now. I collide with my player and coin disappears, but no sound. Why? Because, like I said before, right, for people who are listening, the coin sound can't play because it gets destroyed. The coin destroys itself when it collides with the player. Okay, let me prove that to you. So if I comment that or comment that out, I go back to here and play, and I go, it plays, right? It'll keep playing, right? Forever and ever, right? So that's not the issue. It's not that it won't play. It won't play because it's destroyed. So like I said, to get over this issue, we need something called a coroutine, a way of being able to change the timing of our destruction of the coin at the same time playing the sound. That's something new. We kind of used a coroutine at the beginning. One of the first projects I showed you had a coroutine in it. I'm going to show you a coroutine again, but we're going to do it from scratch. All right? So one thing we need is we need a variable, and this is what I recommend for all coroutines, a variable that's of type wait for seconds. That's the variable type. Is it? We're going to call it wait time. Which we're going to make it a new wait for seconds object. And we're going to assign a number of seconds as a float. We don't want the whole thing. We probably want something like, I mean, how long does that play sound take to do? 0.1 second? Let's try it out. So it's going to be 0.1 F. That's what we're going to put in there. That's the wait time in seconds. Okay, cool. That's the first thing. Second thing we need is the coroutine itself, which is like a function, right? It's of type IEnumerator. This one, IEnumerator. And we have to name the coroutine something, which we're going to say, we'll call it play coin sound. Right? How about we can also call it play and destroy. Play sound and destroy. Play sound and destroy. Let's make it really, really obvious what it's going to do. This is what this thing does. Play sound and destroy the coin. Right? All right, so I don't want to play the coin sound here anymore, right? I want to play it in my coroutine. And then I want to use a special keyword called yield. And we're going to return back to the action after this dot wait time, which is 0.1 seconds. And then after we wait 1.1 seconds, then we're going to destroy everything with this piece of code right here. Undo, undo, undo. I meant this, just this time. Not the whole world. I copied everything. Okay, cool. So this is my coroutine. Excuse me. I'm just going to plug in for a second so you can hear better. So this is my coroutine now. Our coroutine is this piece right here. Coroutine. Okay. I used wait time, which is of type wait for seconds. And I declared it here as an object because if I was to do it in here, every time I play a coin sound, it's going to instantiate a new wait for seconds anonymous object, which I don't need. I can just reuse the same one over and over again. And yes, it'd probably be okay for the coin because you're going to use it one time. But what about if I want to fire a laser, which we're going to do afterwards, and I want to keep firing the laser over and over again? I don't want to keep firing the laser and creating new wait for time objects. Doesn't make any sense. So that's one thing, and I'll talk about what a coroutine is in a second. The next thing I got to do is I got to call my call routine by using start coroutine. I'm going to pass in the name of the coroutine, which is called play sound and destroy, right? Play sound and destroy. There we go. And I got to call it. So what's happening is the coroutine play sound and destroy is being called through this start coroutine method, right? Okay, so what is this coroutine stuff that I'm talking about? Because some people are really confused about it. It's concurrency. And if you've done programming 2 with me or with anybody else, you should know about concurrency. We're creating a secondary thread that we're going to do the coroutine in and controlling the timing of that thread with the yield keyword. The yield keyword tells us how long to wait before it yields control back to the main thread. Okay? That's what it's doing. So it's a really quick way of doing it and without the complexity of using C# concurrency. And what's happened is that the Unity engine has simplified it by using something called the coroutine, okay? More than anything else. You can also use C# concurrency to do it, but it would mess you up because you're dealing with a game loop that's constantly running 60 frames a second, right? Or trying to run 60 frames a second. Event handler that happens all the time, right? And a bunch of other stuff that happens out of sync. So to keep things in sync, we use a coroutine. Okay, because we're using asynchronous threads. Okay. All right. This is cool. I like it. Right. Let's see if it works though. Right. It's one thing to guess that it works. Another thing to try it. Right. So run it. Now it should play the sound, then destroy itself. Right. Let's see if it works. Oh. Okay. That was a little bit short. You guys couldn't hear it. Show you what happens. So we'll go back. Right. So if I go back to this thing, I think 0.1 is too small. Right. I'll go to 0.2. And I'll show you what I'm talking about in a second. Let's try it. So here I'm playing, running. See, it's not, it disappeared. It just almost, I think it's almost good enough. It's like it's almost fast enough. And I think it's probably okay for what we've got, right? A 0.2 or 0.25 or 0.3, something like that is probably the right amount, like 300 milliseconds, you know, not even a second before it runs out and allows us to go through. So let's shoot 0.3. It's not going to kill us to do whatever we want. Again, I'm waiting 0.3 milliseconds or 300 milliseconds in order for me to do this thing. That was too much. See how it went twice? That means it didn't destroy itself before it played once. Yeah, shut up. Sorry, I couldn't deal with that. It feels like I'm the coyote in in some kind of cartoon. Anyways, let's just go back here. Okay, so that was too much. So see what we did? We tweaked it to 0.3, and 0.3 is probably too many times. So probably something like 0.25. Let's try this out. I mean, it's a floating point number, so 250 milliseconds, right? And let's see, if you only want to play this one time, and it's perfect now, right? So 250 milliseconds is the right amount for this sound to play and for it to disappear before it plays again, okay? Make sense? So again, you said you were looking for it last week. You know, this part. So coroutines, playing sounds, and we can time it. Remember before what we did? We put all the sounds on the player. We don't have to do that. We can use coroutines to avoid piling the player with a bunch of extra sounds. And by the way, we can use coroutines for things like explosions. If we make our own custom explosion, I can use a coroutine to play the particle effect for the explosion, special effects, and then when it's done, I can get rid of it, right? Why? I can wait for the time it takes for the particle explosion to resolve, and then I can destroy the object, right? As opposed to, I'm going to destroy it right away. Because if I don't time it, it happens right, immediately, right away. It doesn't wait. Okay. That's fantastic. But what I'd like to try and do is I'd like to try and make another use of a coroutine. Right now we have a coin and it works fine. Let's test multiple coins. We've got the coin happening, right? It's in the maze. But what I want to do is I want to make this a prefab at this point. And we've built it up enough, right? We've got a script that's attached to it. We've added a tag. It works properly. Now it's the time to put it into the prefabs folder. Okay, now our coin is there. Good. Now I can duplicate it, right, by pressing Command or Control D. Make as many coins as I want, right? And they'll act the exact same way, as opposed to, you know, doing it in other ways. And by the way, once you have the coin object, just like any other object, you can drag and drop it into the scene. There we go. I can drag and drop it into the scene anywhere by, again, pulling the object in. Right? There we go. And I can pull in as many of those as I want. And they can spin independently. Is that in the middle of nowhere? Sorry. Is it? No, it's not. It looks like it, but it's not. It's actually in a hallway. So we can make it so it's worthwhile to pull in. So pull that one over here. And Command D, pull that one over here. And then we have a few coins. So let's try and find those coins so you can see that it works. So I kind of do this one, click destroy that one, and there's one behind me. No, I kind of give me a double jolt. I still think 250 is too long somehow. I don't know. Was that? Use? Evoke? Invoke, yeah. again, there's many ways you can do it to do the same thing. But I wanted to use the coroutines. I want to introduce you to them and give you more details about how to use them. Use invoke. So again, if I go down here, I'll look, oh, not that way. I look around, right? And if I go this way, of course, this leads you to the exit, right? In this little game of ours. Here's the exit, but I don't want to go there. I want to pick up my coins, man. Where are the little coins? Where'd they go? I'll go over here, and I think it's over in the dead end over here. And, oh, it's not here, right? But as you can see that the great thing about this, this is not a procedurally generated maze. This is the maze that is kind of set up. Maybe it's down here. Yes. Oh, no. Back to this part. I think I know where I'm going. It's the wrong place. It's over here. I know. I don't have the compass yet. Take care. Yeah. Anyways, I can't find that. It's even this little maze is confusing, right? Oh, let's fall off to die. I still feel like playing anymore. I know, I saw it right there. Damn it. Okay. Anyways, the point is that it works pretty good. And the coins are all working and everything else. That's what I want to show you. Yeah, it's all in this other area. Damn it. I went to the wrong place. Should have just gone left. Anyways, the point is that everything works well. So let's add in now another effect. I talked about, remember I showed you that little example game called mazescape.ca? That one. I want to do a line render. I want to do a laser beam, and I want to change this game from it doing what it does right now to using a laser that comes out of the weapon, right? Now the problem with that is I don't have the right weapon. So I'm going to import a weapon that I've already got from the asset store this week, right? Let's do that. So I've got a package I'm going to import, and then I'm going to upload all this to the to GitHub so you can download it, okay? So I'm going to kind of go assets, import package, custom package, and I'm going to look at the desktop. I'm going to grab this SF Rifle Unity package and open. And it's going to say which ones you want. I don't want these ones or this one. I definitely want all this, and press import. And after it's finishing importing my science fiction rifle, so I want to make a science fiction kind of game, right, as opposed to rifle with that's an M16 or whatever the hell it is, right? Or AK. So it was an AK-47. That's what it was, an AK rifle. Notice that I made a mistake in this thing, and I have two assets. One is called assets, and the other one's assets. I want to just take my rifle and put it into my assets. There we go. Kill the assets. There we go. Buy assets. All right. Now that I have these in here, this is good. I want to kind of save this, save Unity, and I want to upload this to GitHub. So I want to say something like git add dot. That's a lot of stuff. That's crazy amount of stuff. That's taking a long time. Git commit -m, and I'll say added coin prefab. That's what we've really done. Then git push origin master. We should push all that up so you can download the new version with the rifle and the working coins now. If you couldn't get that done, the coins work now, and you can download that project. It's going to be up in a second. And you know, it's like watching paint peel sometimes with GitHub, trying to push everything up, right? But it is what it is. And the idea is as we use GitHub, it grows a little bit more all the time. But we want to make our builds nice and small. Okay, GitHub is done. You guys can download it now. All right, let me open up Unity while you guys are downloading. So here's 11B. And I've got this rifle. which is called SF Rifle. And it has its own scene. I'm going to save my scene. But I want to show you what it looks like. From a scene perspective, you download it if you download it from the asset store, it looks like this. This is the rifle that I'm going to be using, right? Kind of a cool looking little science fiction rifle that I downloaded from the asset store, right? It's got some good good texturing. I think the shape is pretty cool. It's not overly complex, I think, but it's good enough that it looks realistic. It's got a bit of a glow in different areas. It's an okay rifle. This is the one that I want to use, okay? So how do I incorporate this? I'm going to go back to my main scene. So if I go to scenes, and I go indoor, which is where I was, I want to incorporate that rifle and get rid of the other one. Now here's a question for you guys. If I have a rifle, which is this rifle right here, right? Here's my rifle. Should I, if I wanted to pick up multiple weapons in the game, should I somehow have a rifle and I pick it up? Like, how would I pick it up and put it into my character? Should I delete one rifle and add another one? What do you recommend if you're going to make a game that has multiple weapons? Okay, I like the no longer visible, but I wouldn't need two cameras, right? I would load every weapon that's possible in the game onto my character. All of them, right? They're all on my character, all at the same time. And then all I would do is switch them on and off when whatever is being added. So if I have it part of my inventory, is it part of my inventory? Yes, boop, it pops up. Not, it's gone, right? As opposed to adding stuff and removing things, which takes a lot more work. Now, you have to really balance this off, right? If it's a lot of stuff on the character, you may not want to do it this way. But if it's only a few rifles and guns, it's probably better to have all the guns there and then show one and hide the other, right? But there's a problem with that approach in this case, the way we've done it. Why? Because we have a flash point where the muzzle flash comes out that's tied to the rifle. But the thing is, I don't really need to put the flash point onto the rifle. I can put it to the gun cam because the gun cam kind of is guiding the gun anyway, right? So I can take the flash point that I have right now and put it on the gun cam. That's what I want to do, which is going to break my instance, but that's okay. And if I play it now, even if I take the gun away, like I just hide the gun, so I just untag it like this, and I go and play, you can see that even though if I'm playing, I don't have a gun, but I can still fire, right? Because it doesn't matter. It's just a prop. The gun is not real, right? It's not a real gun. It's not going to fire a real bullet. It's a prop, right? So I just took the prop away. I want to add the other one. And if you guys have downloaded the new script or the new version, underneath my imported assets, I have this new gun that I call SF Rifle 2. I'm going to pull this SF Rifle 2 underneath the gun cam like this. And there it is, right? I'll pull it underneath the other rifle. And if I look at it, it is right there, okay? But there is an issue, right? Here's this rifle. There's the other rifle. And it kind of is out of sync with each other, right? They're kind of set next to each other. So I want to kind of match this rifle on top of where this other rifle was because my flash point's somewhere over here, right? So I can look at the original rifle, and if I look at the transform properties, 0.372, I can start matching them up, 0.372. This is the one way of doing it, for sure. And this is minus 0.261. Now, it's not going to be accurate because both weapons are different, right? But minus 0.261. You can see how it's being positioned. And then from a Z coordinate perspective, it's 0.441. So the rifle, 0.441. But it's still not quite perfect. And the reason for that is because the size of the weapons, the way they're being held, their center of balance, and all that kind of stuff. There we go. See? Kind of one rifle on top of another one. So how do I fix this so that this rifle, this new SF rifle, is up here? I got to do some manual manipulation. First of all, let's rename this thing from SF Rifle 2 to SF Rifle. We don't need SF Rifle 2. Save. And what I want to do is I want to look at it from a top-down perspective, pull it over, zoom in, and see that they line up. So I'm going to click on SF Rifle, right? And I'm going to pull this forward a little bit so you can see that, right, how it's lining up. And if I want to do more of a orthographic view, which is probably the best, I can still have my little thing here. You can see that now it looks like it's perfectly lining up from the top perspective, except it's a little bit off to the right. Right, you see that, right? Hopefully you see that. So in order for you to see that better, we're going to pull it to the left a little bit. That's more centered than it was before. There we go. Oops. Fingers. Okay, almost perfect. And now from the front, which is really important too. So we're looking at it from the front, and you can see that it's centered this way, but we want to bring it up so that it is exactly on top of the other one, right? Like that, approximately. Now that is the exact position. Let me just make sure that that is correct. That we didn't lose it. So now you see like both rifles are kind of combined into one. That's what it looks like. Look, kind of overlapping each other, which is kind of cool. I tried, it didn't work. No, because they're different. Because different size rifle and different center of balance, right? So that's why it didn't work exactly. Okay, now that I have that, notice that also I have an animator that's part of the rifle because I brought it in as another object. I'm going to kill this animator. I don't need that right now. And also, I want to hide the rifle, the regular rifle, so I only see my new one. Right, this is the new rifle that I have. Right, that's the first thing. And then, right, I also want to make my rifle, this new one, part of the gun layer so it displays properly. Otherwise, it won't display properly. It won't show up. And let's take a look at what it looks like in game. It looks like this now. So there's my gun. Okay, my flash point. If I go back to my flash point, and if I zoom in on it, you can see that it's okay. I mean, it's a little bit close to the rifle's front, and if I put anything bigger on the front, it might cause a problem. For now, it's okay. So flash point's okay. Rifle's okay. Okay, and if I play, the game looks like I've got this SF rifle as opposed to the other rifle in play. Right, cool. The other thing I don't want it to do, the SF rifle, there's two parts to it. There's actually a U3D root, something else that they put in, these designers, an ammo piece, which is just the butt of the gun, as well as the gun itself, right? Ammo and the gun both show the mesh renderer with cast shadows on. We want to turn that off, just like we had before. So cast shadows has to be off on the mesh renderer. Otherwise, you'll see shadows, like the gun's floating around. The shadows will be on the floor, like the first gun we made, right? We don't want to do that. So those things are gone. Okay, so we've got a new gun. Yay! Except we don't have a laser effect. So we want to do that. We want to kind of create a laser effect for the gun, right? Okay, this is cool. How do I do that? Well, I want to modify my player shooting script. So go to my player, right? And I can also see that my gun sounds like a rifle still, like this rifle. Now I have a sound that I'm going to use for the gun, right? That I want to use to make it sound like it's a some kind of laser weapon. And what I've done is I've taken the chin guns, right? The chin gun sounds from Star Wars AT-ATs, right? Used a little bit of Audacity to modify and add a wah-wah sound to the gun sound, right? To make it my own little sound. So it looks like, almost sounds like a Star Wars sound, but it looks like this. The different sounds so you guys can hear it. All right, so, and I'll pull up the other project that I have to show you. Right? So again, the original sounds were these ones. So I have here's the MP5 wave sound. So it sounds like this, right? Right. That's the original MP5 wave sound, right? And then I was like, that doesn't make any sense with my laser gun, right? So I tried the Death Star gun, right, which kind of looks like this. And I wanted to modify this. Didn't quite work, but it sounds like this, right? So kind of a really quick sound. I tried that one. Then I tried the Droid Deca Blaster, which kind of sounds like this, right? Right? That's not bad. But then I've kind of figured the ATST chin guns sound good, like this, right? Which are cool. But I figured that those weren't the right sounds, that I want to make my own. So I took this ATST chin gun and made my own SF Rifle Shot 2. I first tried to do one with our tool, BFXR or CFXR, and it sounded kind of chintzy. Like it sounded like this, right? Right? Which is kind of like a retro kind of game sound. And if you play that enough, it gets really annoying to hear it over and over again, right? So I didn't like that. So when I use the chin guns and modify them with Audacity, and I just use the wah-wah sound effect, then it sounds like this, right? So kind of like an echo, and it sounds better when you're actually using it over and over again. So I'm going to pull this sound in, this SF Rifle Shot sound, this one, into my sounds folder. Now, I'm not going to, I could certainly make it again with you, but there's no point. It takes a bit of time to balance it off. I'm just going to make it and put it in there. Okay. Now you can make your own if you like. I'm also going to put it up on GitHub later so you can have the actual sound. Okay. There's the sound. Now what I want to do with this one is in my player, remember my player has all the gun sounds, right? And the second audio source has got this one. I'm just going to take this SF Rifle Shot 2 and put it here. And then when I play the game, I can just go, right? It sounds pretty cool. Oh, flash is gonna be okay. I'll leave the muzzle flash. You want to play? It's a muzzle. It's fire coming out of the thing, man. Come on. A fire muzzle flash with a laser. That's right. So you're gonna see what it looks like in a second. I know it's kind of funny, but you can make it whatever. If you want to take the muzzle flash off, you can take it off. If you don't like it anymore, right? You can just add the smoke. Maybe it's going to be smoke, or maybe what you want to do is on the front of the gun, make it glow red, like a red particle effect that kind of glow makes the gun glow as it keeps firing, right? But for now, I'll leave the muzzle flash because it looks good, right? Kind of weird effect. Okay. I want to modify my shooting script to do the same thing. I'm going to need a coroutine, right? But we're going to talk about this in a second. So I want to create a line renderer object, right? So let's go back to the thing here. So I'm going to add a line render object. I'm going to add component, effects, line renderer, okay? And the line renderer will actually draw a line from one point to the other, okay? So if you look here, first of all, the line renderer should not cast shadows. So I don't want the line to cast, like the laser to cast a shadow. Forget it, right? Off. One thing it does is it has materials. We're going to talk about that. And it also has something called a position, right? Well, it's a position array, actually, is what it is, right? And element 0 and element 1. The first part of this position is the starting point. That's where the initial line comes out of, right? And then element 1, so element 0 is the starting. Element 1, in this particular case, is the end of the line. And that's where the line ends, okay? These are the default values. I'm going to override these things with code, okay? So I need to do that. So I need a reference to this line renderer, okay? The other thing is parameters. This is the width in meters. This thing's going to be like 1 meter wide, this line. It's like massive. It's going to be a massive line. So we're going to really cut this line down to 0.05 and 0.05. So like a line that comes out. I can also monkey with the colors. I'm not going to do that right now because we're going to change them by creating a material. Okay. Okay. Well, we have a material. We created it already. We called it line, and it's red. It's yellow. That's the material we're going to use. So I'm going to go back to my player, and I'm going to go to my line render and drag from the materials folder the line material that we created last time into the material in element 0. So that's what's going to be a yellow line that's going to come out of this thing, right? Okay, so we got our line renderer. I need to make a reference to it here in the script, and I'm going to put this a little higher, so I'm going to move it up on the script side, so up to here. Okay, I'm going to go down to the script now and make that reference. I'm going to make a public reference. There's my line renderer. I'm going to call it laser. Okay, that's what it is. And what I want to do something like the same that we did last time. Make a private variable over here. Here's my private variable that I'm going to call. It's going to be of type wait for seconds. We're going to call it wait time. We're going to make a new wait for seconds object. We're going to pass in 0.1 f again, like 100 milliseconds. So I'm making it wait because that's how long the object is going to show the line, and then it's going to take the line away. Okay. The other thing is, in the line renderer itself, I don't want to show the line renderer by default. I want the line renderer not to show. I only want to show the line when I press the button. Okay. Otherwise, it's always going to show. Doesn't make sense. Right. Okay. Other things I need. I'm going to make a public floating variable called weapon range. I'm going to set to about 50 units, right? And the reason for this is, what if I'm not firing at a wall, right? The line has to have an end, right? So if I don't hit something, I want the line to have an end at least the maximum 50 meters away, right? So if I fire my weapon into the sky, right, it's still going to make the line happen with a beginning and an end. The beginning will be the muzzle flash, and the end will be, you know, this 50 meters range away, right? So that's what I want this thing to do. So I need this weapon range thing. Okay, how does it work? So I press the button down, and as soon as I press it, the muzzle flash initiates. There's muzzle flash, and then what I want to do is, I want to do something like this. I want to say laser dot set, right? Set position, right? For position 0, which is the 0th element, which is the starting point of my line. I'm going to set the vector position as the muzzle flash, the flash point. So this dot flash point dot position. That's the initial position of the line, right? Right? So that's element 0. Why it's this, right? And then if it hits something, if it hits anything, right? Whatever it hits, I'm going to play the rifle shot sound, and then I want to say my laser dot set position, right? Position 1 is the hit, whatever the hit location is, the hit point location, right, is where I want it to go. So this is terminus of the laser, right? Or line position, we'll say line position, which is element 1. Now you can have an array of elements that makes the line go in different positions. So you can have, like, instead of a line going from A to B, it can go from A to B to C to D and draw a shape if you want. Okay, weird, but you can do it. Okay, but here my line renderer only goes from one position to the other. But what if I miss? This up to here is if I hit. So no, sorry, this one is I actually fire. So this actually is not here. This has to be inside the hitting area, which is in here. Sorry. Right? So this piece can't be here. It's got to be here. Because it's got to be on a hit. If it hits something, I have a hit point. Right? The position of the hit. Right? But if it misses, that means if it doesn't hit anything, if it misses, then I got to make an else. And I got to say that the laser dot position, right, for the terminus is where? It's got to be the player cam position, right? Because the camera position of the player camera, right? So this dot player cam dot position, it's going to start there, right? and then plus this dot player cam dot forward, right, which is a set vector, right, multiplied by the scalar, which is this dot weapon range. Oops. That is what it's going to be at. That is if the weapon misses, if the laser misses. Laser misses. Terminate it 50 units from the player cam. Right? That's what this does. And again, this player cam.forward is just a unit vector that points away from the camera, and then I'm multiplying the unit vector by a scalar, which is this weapon range, which multiplies, because if the unit vector is, for example, it's in the z direction, right? So it goes x, y, z, 0, 0, 1. And if I multiply a vector by a scalar, I multiply each of the components, x, y, and z, by the scalar, which is weapon range, 50. But if I multiply 0 by 50, it's 0. 0 by 50 is 0. 1 by 50 is 50. So it's going to be 0, 0, 50 at the end. That's going to be the new scalar, the new vector, right? And that's the new position. 50 away from where I'm looking, basically. Okay? Okay, this is part one. But this just sets the positions. This doesn't draw the line. Remember what I got to do. I got to draw the line for a certain time and then take it away. I need a coroutine for that. So I'm using timing. So I'm going to make the coroutine. I'm going to call it down here, right? I'm going to call the coroutine. It's got to be of type I enumerator, right? And the coroutine is going to be called shot effect, right? And the shot effect is going to be played. This is the coroutine. Coroutine, right? Shot effect is going to do the following. It's going to say my laser dot enabled is equal to true, right? And then I'm going to yield, just like we did before, return this dot wait time. And then my laser dot enabled is equal to false. So it's going to show the laser for first, wait for 0.1 seconds, and then take it away. So pew, like a little laser bolt, like this, right? Now you can change the time, wait time and modify it and check and see if it's the right amount and so on, but that's really what you have to do. Save. Make sense? Coroutines, my friends. All right, let's check this out and see if it works, because that's the major thing. So I'm gonna go back to this and unplug here so you can hear it better. And I'm going to play. And if everything works out, and it will not work out right now because I forgot to do something. I forgot inside my script to pull this line renderer into here. Gotta do that, or else there's no reference to the line renderer, right? Because the line renderer is actually a component, and all I'm doing is dragging and dropping it into my script, my reference, so I can make a reference to it. Okay, let's try that again. So if I go here now, if I hit it, okay, where's my line renderer? How come it's not working? How come? Let's see what's happening. You don't tick it. Nope, you don't tick it. Because if you tick it, it'll always show. So let's go check it and see if it's something that I did wrong. And it's always something minor, right? So again, laser.setPosition 0.this.flashpoint.position. That's the position of the first one. And then if my raycast hit is true, then instantiate the bullet impact, and I want to laser.setPosition1 hit.point. Else, if I didn't hit anything, as an example, then I want to set position of my player cam position plus the forward. And then, oh yeah, I remember what I did wrong. Where did I call my coroutine? I gotta call my coroutine somewhere. I made my coroutine, but I never called it, right? So I play the rifle sound, might as well call my coroutine to show the laser, right? So it's right at the bottom. So I'm gonna say something like start coroutine, and I'm gonna call this shot effect. Go. Okay, let's try this out now. So now we should have a laser that's perfectly timed. Where is it? Where is it? Ah, there we are. Oh, missed that one. There we go. No, not there. Let's see if we can make it out. Make it out of here alive. Okay. Becoming more of a fun game now, right? Yeah. And we're going to make it out. Now, I don't want to go there because that's going to take me to a new place. And I have a problem with my gun. It's going back to this, right? And why? Because I didn't make my gun. I didn't apply this to the prefab, right? Which is what I got to do. So, line render. Okay, we have a little bit more time. And what I'm going to do now is I want to add a grenade to the gun, right? So not only does it have a laser, but it fires, it's got an under grenade. You can't see it. It's invisible, but it's actually there, right? All right. How do I do the grenade? What am I going to do? It's very important to do it properly. I need a new script. Okay, this grenade is going to be a projectile script. A projectile shooting script is what it's going to be. So I'm going to go do a new script. I'm going to create a new C# script called projectile shooting. Okay? This projectile shooting script is going to be, it's going to lob the grenade. It's going to start from around the flash point, and it's going to lob the grenade. And when it hits the other side of the whatever it hits, it's going to actually apply forces, right? So that when it explodes something, it pushes something away, right? Just saying. How does it work? I got a little code snippet for this one, right? So let's take a look at the code snippet. And then I'll describe all the stuff it's doing. It's not here, actually. It's in my other program. Now, this is great. The great thing is that, again, you guys can get the best of this because you're watching it. A lot of times people rewatch this. Not this one. 9C. Here it is. All right, so there's this projectile shooting script. We're going to talk about projectile explode in a second. So I'm going to open this up with Visual Studio. By the way, Visual Studio, there is another way. We'll talk about. This is not a big script here, but we'll talk about what this does. Visual Studio Code is another way of another kind of editor that you can use. And I know some people have been using Visual Studio Code as opposed to Visual Studio or even MonoDevelop. How do you do this? You need to get a plugin for Unity to get this done. Okay, so let me pull this up here so you can see. So if I say VS Code for Unity, I want to get that a plugin for VS Code. It tells you, it takes you to this Unity development with VS Code, and what it tells you to do is to download this, to clone this script that comes, this plugin, and the plugin has to go at the root of your assets folder. Right? Okay, once you get the plugin, you can use VS Code instead of MonoDevelop that I've been using here for my scripts. So if you're interested in doing that, it's very simple. I've already got the script here, and I'm going to add it in so you can see it when you download my project. Okay, so you can use, and you'd have to have VS Code, Visual Studio Code, to make use of this. All right, so if you're going to do this, please download and install Visual Studio Code, which I recommend. Anyway. So here it is. Here's my VS Code script. I need to take this plugins folder, right? And I need to take this plugins folder and copy it into the root of my project. So I'm going to copy it. And I'm going to go to the root of my project. But first, what I probably should do is take Unity and close it up. So File, right? And I want to close Unity. First, I'll save the scene. Then I'll save the project. Then I'll quit Unity. And I'll put it in the root of my project, which is somewhere. Make another window. There we go. So it's under Desktop and Unity Projects, and right here, and under Assets. So I'm going to put a Plugins folder right in here. I'm going to do that by copying the Plugins folder and then pasting it in here. There it is, my Plugins folder. Okay, that's number one. And then we're going to change this projectile stream. Let me save this to GitHub. So I'm going to say git dot git commit -m. We'll say added line render, and then git push origin master. So you'll have the line render script there. So if you want to do a laser shot, you can do it. And again, you can use all kinds of additional things, like if I want to combine the laser shot with some kind of particle effect, you can do that to make it glow. You can use a line. You can use also a line trailer, like it's basically a line that trails behind. Trail render is what it's called. I'll be okay. And there's all kinds of stuff you can add to make the laser shot more interesting. Okay, let's get into Unity again. And I'm going to show you what it does. So once I've got this plugin, I just downloaded and put it in for VS Code. Instead of me using, again, MonoDevelop as my editor of choice, I can use VS Code now because of this plugin. Right? If I look at Unity preferences, you can see that there's another VS Code area here inside preferences. And it tells me where VS Code is. I'll find VS Code, Visual Studio Code, and use that instead. Okay, how does this work? So if I double click on my projectile shooting script, it'll now open Visual Studio Code, which gives me a lot better, that's cool, a lot better, here it is, code hinting than the other one, right? When in MonoDevelop, right? So once I start typing, it'll give me all the code hinting that I need. Okay, if you're someone who's a fan of Visual Studio Code like I am, it's totally cool. Right. Thanks, Ash. Is everything in there already? What are those? Those are the extras?
Yes.
All right. Bye. Okay, so we got that little code snippet too. We have that code snippet from our projectile shooting script. So what is this doing? So one is I need to get access to the rigid body for the projectile, right? Because I have a projectile that I'm going to shoot at. I also need to know where the flash point is. So where I'm going to shoot it at. I have a projectile force, right? How much force I'm going to use. The fire rate, right? And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to create a rigid body. And I'm going to, when I instantiate, instantiation isn't just about creating an object, but I can also save a reference to the rigid body that I'm creating, which is my projectile, and I can put it inside of an object. So I can say something like my rigid body. I can clone my rigid body, right? And I can cast the projectile that I instantiate as a rigid body and save a reference to it inside this object called clone RB, right? Then I can take that rigid body, because after I instantiate it, I have no control over it, right? Well, if I do it this way, I can add force to the rigid body in the forward position, right? Multiply by the projectile force, which is 500 to start. So what this is going to do is going to cause the projectile, right, to fly in a certain direction. Now it's a projectile, which means physics forces will take effect. It'll arc, just like it would if I threw something. Now I don't have to make it from my gun. It can come from me, my camera, if you want to, right? I'm making it from my gun, so it looks like it's coming from the gun. And it's not going to allow me to do it all the time. Notice it's on Fire 2. Fire 2 is the right mouse button. Okay? So we're just going to copy this code the way it is. I'm just going to copy it from here to there, up to about here. I'll copy it, right? I'm going to go over, this is my snippet, just to save time for this one so I can get this done. So in my my projectile shooting script, and I will replace this stuff inside here with the code snippet. Okay, cool. There's my player shooting. Now what this does is, like I said, it just creates a rigid body, right? But I need a reference to a projectile. I don't have a projectile yet. I'm just going to make a sphere that's going to be small enough that I can use as a grenade, right? So that's part one. Part two. The other thing I want to try and do with my scripts, right? And again, I want to go to my, it's the wrong one. And so is this. I love this. What I want to go also is not just my projectile shooting, but my projectile explode. And if I look at my projectile explode script, I'll open it up with VS Code. So when it explodes, this is another thing. So I have my projectile shooting. But when it explodes, I want to have a blast radius. So the blast radius is the radius in meters that the projectile will explode. Right now I've set it to 5. With a blast force of 60,000 force. It's going to really be an explosion, right? I set a default damage to 1. We're going to change that later on. But here's what I'm going to do, which is kind of funny, and you've probably never seen this before, right? By the way, this all comes from the tutorials online. So I'm going to do something like this. I'm going to say physics.overlap sphere. This is something like a raycast. But instead of doing a raycast, I'm creating something called an overlap sphere. Overlap sphere actually creates a sphere of a certain size. And anything that overlaps, anything that's inside that sphere, and if there are many objects that are inside that sphere, it'll create an array of hit colliders, right? So each of those hit colliders, if they have a rigid body, we're going to add an explosion force, right, which is another kind of force you can add, right, equivalent to the blast force, and in the direction of transform position, wherever it's going to start there, and then with the blast radius. It's really kind of cool. So what it's going to do is going to cast away objects with a rigid body away from the grenade. Okay? And then when the grenade itself collides with anything else, it's going to instantiate an explosion wherever the position of the grenade is, and it's going to allow it to explode. Now you notice that this is what happens on collision enter. And we're using this switch that says that explode is equal to true, right? If explode is equal to false, which it is right now, it won't do this, right? It won't use fixed update at all. It only works if there's an explosion, if I actually hit something on collision enter. Right? If I don't hit anything, there's no explosion. So if I cast the grenade into the middle of space and it just falls, it keeps falling, it'll never explode, right? But if I hit something with it, with a rigid body, it'll explode and push the rigid body back. That's what it's going to do. Okay? Let's incorporate this one, projectile explode. And we'll kind of add that script in there too. So I'm explaining it, and I'm not doing it just for time, because we're at 440 right now. That's why. Okay? So again, we'll put it in there. We'll say projectile explode. Cast the projectile explode. And what we're going to do is we're going to go back to our this version of the code, and I'm going to grab all this stuff. I'm going to go all the way down to here, copy it. Oops, go over to the actual code, which is here, paste. Okay, so I got that too. All right, we got these, right? We got the projectile explode and all that kind of stuff, but we don't have a projectile, so let's make one. Now, it's not that difficult to make. What we're going to do is we're going to make a little sphere projectile with a default material, right? And I'm going to use inside my hierarchy, I'm going to make a new 3D object sphere. There it is, pretty big. Okay, it's not, can't be that big, right? Because that makes no sense, right? So let us scale this thing down, right? So I'm going to scale the sphere down. And if you want to make it look like a grenade, obviously you can make it, pick a grenade object or whatever. I'm just going to make it a little sphere. And let's just make it so it's like, I don't know, we cast spheres. But if you really want to make it wobbly or a different size, like you want to make it something like that, you can certainly do that. It's up to you. So from one position. That looks kind of weird. So I'm going to undo that. Make it a little bit smaller. Remember that it is also going to come from the flash point, right? And that means that the flash point now on the gun, on the player, here's my flash point. It's way too close, right? Because it's going to actually hit the gun. And that's got a rigid body, and it's going to explode, and we don't want any of that crap to happen. So what we're going to do is we're going to move the flash point a little bit ahead, just to be able to accommodate this sphere. And to test that, I want to move the sphere as close to the muzzle as I can, and overlap the flash point, just for this purpose, just to see it. Right, so if I go to the flash point, you can see that it's slightly ahead. I'm going to be okay. In fact, I can probably bring it a little bit back. There we go. Okay, now the sphere is not going to be called sphere. It's going to be called projectile. Projectile. There we go. And the projectile is going to have two scripts. One, the projectile shooting script. Right? There it is. And it needs the projectile itself, which is the rigid body attached to the projectile, which we don't have yet, as well as the projectile explode script. There's the two scripts. Let's add a rigid body. So add, okay, physics, rigid body. And we'll put that up one more time. Okay, there's my rigid body. Yay. I need gravity for sure because I want my gravity to take effect. I can change the mass and all that later. For now, I've got this. So I'm going to take my rigid body, I'm going to pull it into this one. My flash point from my gun, right? So here's my player cam, flash point. Move that in there. There's my flash point. Here's my explosion, which I already have in prefabs. Here's my explosion. Pull that into there. That's the explosion that's going to generate. And I'm good. But we have to get another thing is the actual projectile itself should probably be a prefab, right? So I want to pull this projectile, oops, into there. But all the thing I want to do is want to add in a material for the projectile. So I'm going to call create a new material. It's kind of ugly, this thing. A new material, which I'm going to call projectile. And let's make it so that we change the albedo of this so that it is a little darker, right? Like this. And maybe metallic. So we'll kind of add a metallic sheen to it. And a little bit smoothing. There we go. So it's kind of like a metallic globe. Right? Ding, ding, ding. And then boom, right? So that's what it's going to look like. And I'm going to attach this to the projectile itself. So let's just do one of these. And take the projectile material and add it in. There we go. So it looks a little darker. Right? And now when I fire now I can actually pull this into the prefabs folder. It's my projectile. And now I can get rid of it. Because I only want it to establish itself when I need it. Whew. Okay, let's try this out. Oops. How about I move it in there? There we go. So bam. Okay, well, what happened? How come it's not firing? I got that part. I'm being pushed. Okay, so how come my right mouse button isn't firing anything, right? I mean, isn't firing anything at all, right? Oh man, get out of here. So that didn't work. Got that one, and I want to be able to fire at stuff and see what happens. Okay, see what went on. What happened exactly with my scripts? So again, if I go to my player shooting script, my player. And my player shooting script is there. Oh, that was smart. I know what I did. My prefabs, it shouldn't have, my projectile shouldn't have the script. Projectile shooting script. It's called project shooting. Darn. Let's remove this one. It should just have the explosion script, right? Now, the projectile shooting script, which I'm going to rename. Actually, I'm not going to touch it right now, because if I mess with it, it's going to be messed. Let's just take the project shooting script and put it on the player, because that's the one that needs the control. Yeah. Okay, let's make sure that that's correct. I need a rigid body for my projectile. So again, I need to make a reference to the projectile itself. And a flashpoint, which I have to do. So I'm going to, again, the player, flashpoint. Now it should work. Whew. Okay, I'll be all right. Okay, so what? Oh, man. What happened? Where's it going? You know what's happening, right? It's working. But it's going to the right. Why is it going to the right? See that? I'll tell you why. Because it's a very simple fix. If you look at the script for this one, for projectile shooting, right? If I edit the script, you can see that what it's trying to do, where it's firing it, how it's firing it. I'm adding a force to the flashpoint transform forward. I probably didn't rotate the flashpoint. So the flashpoint, even though it's the flashpoint, it's pointing to this way, right? I'm just saying, to the right. Let's see if I'm right. So if I go here, and if I go to the flashpoint, and how do I know that? Because if I go into the flashpoint itself, what's forward in the flashpoint, right? Yeah. So I need to rotate it across the y-axis, right, like negative 90 degrees. So what I want to do is this flashpoint's got to rotate this way, right? And actually, it's already been, look, I'm going to undo that. It's already rotated 90 degrees for some silly reason. Look, let's get rid of that, make it 0. Okay, now let's try it. Hey, let's see if it actually does something to that thing. Oh, I bumped into it. Ah, it works, but right, so was that? Doesn't push it away? It doesn't push it away because of the type of enemy that I have. These enemies, right? When it comes to my, do I have a rigid body in these enemies? There's no rigid body, right, on the enemies, right? We can add it in, right? But just be aware of what I'm going to do. When I add a rigid body, right, I need to remove gravity, because if I don't remove gravity, but then if I remove gravity, it's going to be pushing it up into the air, right? It's going to stay there forever, right? Let's try it anyway. So add a new physics, rigid body, right? And then what I'm going to do is, right, I'm going to kind of move this. Well, I'll leave it here for now, right? But you can see that if I was to just leave it the way it is right now, will they follow me even with a rigid body? Will it make a difference? And you can see that it's pretty cool. But now if I fire at it, I can fire at everything, man. Look at it. Right? Fire over here. Right? It's a big grenade, but it doesn't do anything yet. All right. So what is the cause? Why when I fire this thing, it's supposed to impart force on this thing? And if you look at the scripts for this, and if I look at the projectile explode script for this one altogether, you can see that what it's doing. It's saying if the component has a rigid body, add the blast force, and the blast force being 60,000, it's going to add it to this thing. That's what it's doing. So it's generating this thing, and said, and if it hits, it's going to explode. So the only way it generates an explosion is if it collides. If there's a collision that enters. And on collision enter means any kind of collision with any other kind of collider, right? That's what this thing does, okay? And then it's going to generate this overlap sphere, okay, with a blast radius and so on. Okay, now the thing is, and this is where the nav mesh becomes really useful, right? Even though I'm blowing it away, the nav mesh is pushing it towards me. Right? So it's fighting. So the nav mesh is coming towards me, and the other object is pushing it away. And a great idea of this is if I add in some other object to show you what I'm talking about. So let's say, and then I'll stop today, right? But let's say I want to add another object, another primitive onto the scene, right? Like a black box or something like that, right? So I'm going to go to create, right? And by the way, when I added the rigid body on this one, for it to go in all of them, I have to click apply, right? So again, if I want to add another object, I'm going to create, right? Let's say a 3D object. We'll create a cube. There it is, right? And this cube, I'm going to move it so that it's over here, okay? And just to make it easier, we're going to go to materials, and we're going to make it a the same material as the gate. Okay, so it's going to be glowing green. Why not? Okay, so I have the green material. There it is. I want to blast it to hell, right? So I need to add in a rigid body, right? So physics, rigid body. There it is. And let's add some weight to it. So we'll make it like it's worth like 40 weight. So you can see that there's some kind of force to it all, and it's going to land properly, right? Okay, let's try this out. Now this object is just going to fall, right? So fire at it, boom, right? So you see how damn cubes or damn enemies, or this is one more coming too, remember? So if I fire at it, see how it moves it? Now here's something that's happening. See how sometimes when I throw the thing, it misses? How can it miss? Because I'm not using discrete collisions, right? I'm not using continuous collisions, sorry, I'm using discrete collisions. So to fix that problem, you're going to have to go into your prefabs projectile and change your collisions, right? Instead of discrete to continuous. And now, my friends, when you do it, it's going to be much more effective. Huh? Right? So it'll fire as much as I want, right? And it'll also blast this stuff to hell, right? Now it's just in a corner. That's what it's like the way it is, right? There we go. Right? See that? So it's pretty good. So I got my thing, and it actually will apply forces. I can also hit myself with it, so be careful. If I go like this, if I toss it into there and run, like that, I hit myself, right? So if we can't run and throw a grenade, it's bad, right? Not the way I've done it. All right, so if I run and throw a grenade, I got to actually increase the velocity. So now the gun fires lasers and throws grenades, right? And they work, right? So it actually creates a game where you can have multiple objects. And a good example of that is if I was to take this sphere or this cube and duplicate it, right? So I kind of duplicate it, so I create a stack of spheres, cubes. So here. Okay, and if I run this now, you can see that there's a stack. There we go. And if I blow it up, right? Right? You can see that it's more of a, you can use this for different effects, right? Now to hear it, it's really more, it's much more I'm just going to unplug here so you can hear it, what it sounds like when you're playing. It's a frag fest, right? So I'm playing, and then I'm back up, and then up. Now, what if I want to add, here's, before I, sorry, I just thought about this. I swear I'll let you go after this. But what if I want to add force to my gun, too? So when I fire my weapon, it pushes stuff off, too. How do I do that? If my hit has a rigid body, right? If it has a rigid body, if the hit itself, the hit point has a rigid body, if it's true, then I can add force to it. That's how you do it. And I can add force to it just by hitting it. And I can add whatever force I want, right? So that's how you can do it, if my hit has a rigid body. Yeah, you can do all kinds. You can hit it enough times so it kind of breaks apart. Yes, of course. But the way to do that, the reason why it doesn't work in the enemy, like I said before, is because the enemy is coming towards you all the time. What was that? Because of the nav mesh, yeah. So, yes, you could. So when you hit it, that's really a good idea. So let's say, for example, when it gets hit, and if it hits an enemy, right? If the projectile hits an enemy, then disable the nav mesh that belongs to the other collider, and then it would fly, right? Because what can it do, right? So it's kind of neat. All right, okay, I'll do it. Just to test, just for you, right? Since you asked, right? So how do we do that? Again, what you're saying is the projectile script itself is what we have to modify. So projectile explode script. So okay, fine. So on collision other, right? Do all this, right? Instantiate the explosion, and do this whole thing, and explode is equal to true, which is all up here. But at the same time, what I want to do is whatever it collides with, if it's an enemy, get rid of its nav mesh, right? So because we know all enemies have a nav mesh, because that's how we've made them. But you can also test for it. So you can say something like this. You can say if other game object compare tag. Actually, see, this is where from VS Code is not as good. Okay, I can't remember if it's compare tag or compare tag, right? If compare tag, maybe if you can check it for me, compare tag, and it would be enemy. If that's true, I think it's this way, but I can't remember. If it's true, then I can say that what I want to say is that the other object, I want to take away its nav mesh. That nav mesh is disabled. The problem is the only way you can do that is to make a reference to the enemy. It's not as easy as you think. Because the enemy itself, so I'm trying to code it, but the problem is the enemy itself, right? Even though it has a nav mesh agent, that's what it is, not the nav mesh agent, right? When I hit it, the nav mesh agent turns off, is what you're saying, right? But the problem is that we would have to know that the other object that we're hitting, the other game object that we're hitting, is of type enemy. So we have to cast it as an enemy. Otherwise, we wouldn't know that it has a nav mesh. See what I'm saying? So that's a problem. So yeah, it can be done. I'm not going to do it here because it can take a much more coding than this. Or because we have to kind of say that it can't just turn off the other thing altogether. We have to kind of define that it's there, and if it's there, then we get rid of it. Otherwise, it might cause an issue. But yes, it's possible. Right. So I'll let you guys do it, or we can try and do it another time. All right, questions around this. Let's cover what we've done today. We've done a lot, again, like every other time we could together. Next week, it won't be so action-packed, like with the grenade launcher and the laser beam and all that stuff, right? But we've done a bunch of stuff. So this is what we've done. We've talked about at length about your project requirements in the first video, right? As well as your presentation requirements. Again, presentations required. They take the place of an exam, right? And that's, again, it's going to be due when you come into class on December 17th, on the Saturday. Your presentation and your screencast should be done. and ready to go. And you should have already submitted it, right, inside Dropbox, okay, because that's when it's due. That's your presentation. You're going to present with your team, and then your final submission for your project is going to be December 19th, which is the Monday after our class, okay? That's what's happening. We also covered a line renderer, how to create a laser, how to do simple animation with keyframe animation, bring in an object from Blender and kick off its animation properties, create an animator, and all that kind of stuff. That's where we created a coin pickups. And of course, we also created the last one, which was kind of an add-on from the morning class, which is a bit of a grenade launcher to kind of launch a grenade and create a sphere. You know, basically that sphere of force, which is with this really interesting script that I found very interesting, this overlap sphere. That's what it is, an overlap sphere, which creates an array of hit colliders. And what this is doing is you iterate through the array of hit colliders, checking to see if each one of them has a rigid body. And if it has a rigid body, that's what we can do. We can go get component. Get component, nav mesh. And if it has it, we can use this nav mesh and turn it off. That's how we can do it. Sorry, I just thought of it. Instead of making a reference like the other game object, it'll be game object. So it'll be other.gameObject.getComponent and nav mesh agent, and then remove it. Enabled is equal to true. That is equal to false. And that'll be it. That'll do the explosion, right? So that's it. And so we did all that. This is a really cool concept because what it does, it creates spheres of force, right, to give more of a cinematic explosion as opposed to just a big explosion. It doesn't do anything, right? So it's not just an effect, but also pushes the objects back. And it can cause some destruction. So imagine you can create buildings that have multiple objects that's built into them, that have rigid bodies on them. You can build all that in. So when you construct buildings, so you can break them. You can, you know, break objects and structures, and it gives you another idea for creating a game, right? Lots of little things, and you know what? Again, I have to say this again. We're only scratching the surface of the stuff that Unity can do, because you know Unity is used for every other thing, right? One thing we didn't do today is do a WebGL build. I'm going to stop recording, upload to GitHub, and do my WebGL build and test it. But everything will be up on GitHub at the end of today. Any questions around the stuff we covered? Lots of little things, you know. And again, you can apply a lot of the same stuff to other things. So again, these are just components to help you build your game to make it more interesting. Okay, next week we'll do a little video. I want to show you a little video about making your game more juicy, right? And how to do that. Huh? He showed it to you? It's a good video, right? The juicy video, right? But we'll do a little bit of it. Some people haven't seen it, so we'll watch a little bit of that. We won't watch the whole thing, but I'll make a reference to that video, and it's really cool about how to make your game a little juicier, right? All right, guys, thank you so much. See you next week.